The darkness continues.
Open your mind.
Dark exodus. Dark exodus. The protester.
Dark exodus.
Open your mind.
You know.
Yeah, X.
You know.
Dark exodus. You understand?
Yeah, X.
You know.
You understand? Open your mind.
Dark exodus. Yeah, X.
You know.
You understand?
Yeah, X. dark exodus.
Peace, folks. Welcome back to another edition of the Proper Thought Series right here on the old T.P.O.T YouTube page. I'm your host, X, of course, but you knew that already. That's why your black asses are here. Tonight, special show tonight. This is Saturday, DXL, Dark Exodus live, and we're gonna have brother D. Darrell on tonight. And we're going to talk about this C.P.S. thing, man. We're going to talk about what goes into it. Y'all know brother D. Darrell is a psychotherapist, so I'm pretty sure he has a lot of cases that he advised on concerning children and shit like that. And if you have some stories about C.P.S. that you want to talk about, you can come up here and talk about it too. Y'all know the email. The email is properthought@yahoo.com. That's properthought, one word, no caps, @yahoo.com. But before we get started, y'all know I always start the show off with thanking you good folk for your likes, your shares, your subs, your views, and of course your hard-earned pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and 50-cent pieces. I was looking at my Cash App today, man, and I got a couple nice Cash Apps today, and I wasn't even on. I want to salute the brothers, for dropping those coins on me, doing it when you know you don't have to. You brothers know who you are. I'm not gonna blow you up or nothing like that, but y'all know who y'all are, man, and I appreciate it, brothers. I appreciate it. In fact, let me do this for the good brothers who dropped a couple Cash Apps on me today when I wasn't even on the air. A big coin drop on the platform. Yeah, brothers, I appreciate it, man. I do. Absolutely, I do. Because, see, I realize, man, you don't have to watch these goddamn videos. You don't have to spend your damn Saturday night here or Wednesday night here or Thursday night here. You don't have to share these videos. You don't have to sub to this damn channel. And you also don't have to drop your hard-earned coins on this platform. But you good folks, man, you choose to do so, man. Night after night, week after week, y'all are here. Y'all here with me, man. And I just want you to know, man, that I appreciate it. I don't take you lightly. I never have and I never will. I'm humbled. I'm honored. I'm thankful for all you good folks, man, for the good folks who hang out there and the good folks who hang out up in here. All right. All right. I see brother D. Darrell has entered the building, but before we get to brother D. Darrell, I want to talk to y'all just a few minutes before we get into any of that. Now, I'm sure many of you know people who have had some C.P.S. problems. I know I have. I know people. Some of you may have had some C.P.S. problems yourselves. You look up and knock, 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 and there's the white C.P.S. lady at your door asking you questions about the kids because somebody done filed a report, right? And then what happens? You have to explain to the little tyke why they're being taken away because they don't understand. They just see these strange white folks coming in and taking them and leaving. So, mom, she tries to explain it the best way she can. Mom's crying and going on. The kid is crying because they don't want to go with the white folks. But I'm going to show y'all tonight. What I'm going to show y'all tonight, or try to discuss tonight, is that these people make a lot of mistakes when they take people's kids. And also, there's a lot of kids that they should be stepping in and taking, and they don't. So it's a double-edged sword. And I think they probably get it right maybe most of the time, I would imagine. At least I hope they do. I hope they get it right most of the time. But tonight we're going to talk about it. We're going to discuss it tonight. Are these folks protectors or just simple abductors of the kids? So let's get at it. Let me go ahead and bring in the one and only D. Darrell.
What's up, brother? How you doing?
What's good with it, man? What's good with it? Glad you're here. Now let me ask you before we even get started. I know you probably consult on these kind of cases, right? You consult on, some of these CPS cases, or is that not in your wheelhouse?
I do a lot. I do a lot of CPS. I specialize in it. This is something that I've been doing for 12 years. Actually, longer than that. Actually, I began doing before I went into business for myself. 2 years. I've been doing CPS work uh, for let's say 15 years.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, well, before we get, deep into it, when it comes to CPS, right, it has to meet a certain threshold before they can just come in and just take the kids, right? They don't usually just come
Yes.
right in and take the kids off top, right?
Unless there are some extreme circumstances, and I'm going to talk about that because part of what I like to discuss is the process in which the CPS case starts. I also want to talk about, particularly in our community, the ratchet BS that goes on that cause a lot of um, basically, unnecessary CPS cases that go on in our community. That's something I think a lot of people may not be aware of. I know we've seen a little bit of it on YouTube where people falsely and made, I think um, uh, they made false claims that were not necessary just to get back at people. But what I plan to do is to illustrate a picture of what that culture looks like as far as the type of clients uh, that are there, particularly how it affects our community. I'm going to kind of walk you through what a caseworker endures in that process, and also me as a third party, as a therapist that has to treat these clients per se, and try to provide some assistance to them. And on my end, I kind of realize, what were legitimate CPS cases, were not. Usually, I come in at the back end once they've completed an array of different services, and then usually the therapy is usually the last and final uh, service that they have to participate in before they discharge them or discontinue the services. But there's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot of BS that goes on in that. What I've seen is some good caseworkers. I've seen some bad caseworkers. I've seen some bad supervisors. I've seen situations where the lawyers are involved, going to court, um, people's cases being delayed, and then I just downright just seen some bad parents, just poor, horrible parents that just don't get it, and they just don't take it serious. And I've seen people lose kids just on the fact that they did not cooperate with the services. Like I can pretty much kind of give you a full view of what people go through, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the positive. I do think that CPS is necessary and it does have a place in our society. Um, I also want to make everybody aware of that they I think that CPS, just like any other government agency, is funded. And I do think that some of the reasons why they have so many kids and such is because they have to meet a certain level of quota to maintain their funding. And I don't think people realize, just like any government agency, if there's a decrease or they don't have certain numbers, well, you're gonna lose certain resources. And I do think that there is, particularly in the higher ups, particularly those that uh, at the top echelon of that type of department, which particularly in the state of Texas is called the Department of Family and Protective Services. And within the Department of Family and Protective Services, there are a lot of different out branches, such as C.P.S, APS, also child care, and all different other type of licensing that they provide. So I definitely, ask me whatever questions you like. I'm very well versed in this. The fact that I've been actually providing CPS cases since 2016. I mean, I'm sorry, not 16, 2006. And actually, that was the same year I actually became licensed. So, I've been doing CPS cases since then. And once I became functioning within my own company, I began contracting for myself since 2010 within my own company.
Well, you mentioned that parents can get their kids taken away by not taking advantage of the services. When you talk about services, are you talking about what, like anger management, parenting classes, what, alcohol anonymous because they, or what's that, narcotics anonymous because they own dope? That's what you're talking about, like those kind of services. Oh shit. I think we lost Brother D. Darrell. Damn it. I think we lost him, y'all. Brother D. Darrell. Brother D. Darrell, you back? You back?
Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay, hold on.
Did you hear the?
Yeah,
all right,
give me.
And like I said, if any of you have any CPS stories you want to share, feel free to hit me up on the email. It's propertothought@yahoo.com. That's propertothought, one word, no caps, at yahoo.com if you wish to come up and, testify. If you wish to come up and testify to your experience with CPS. I remember back when I was younger, someone that I knew had CPS shit going on with them, and they got their kids taken away, but they eventually got them back. I don't know the particulars, but I knew they took the kids, and the kids were gone for like a few months, but they eventually got them back. So they must have did what CPS told them, and they got the babies back. But
right.
What I was asking you about, Brother D. Darrell, because you said that a lot of times they'll get the kids taken away just because they didn't get themselves involved with these services. I'm assuming something like anger management or
right
or some type of alcohol, drug treatment, that type of stuff. That's what you're talking about, right?
Right, correct.
So
basically what happens is whenever they do an investigation and they decide that your case is deemed moving forward to need their supervision, based on the abuse or whatever that was done, they are going to mandate that you take certain types of classes, whether it's anger management, definitely parenting classes, domestic violence, substance abuse, things of that sort. You will be required to. You also may be required to do drug testing, whether you have been caught using drugs, and they're going to immediately drug test you no matter what, just to make sure to see if you have something in your system or not. And they are going to require you to take an array of classes and so forth. I mean, I've seen people take tons of different classes of different things of different sort.
and on top of you working, if you're working. And to be honest with you, a lot of people struggle because and some people lost their jobs or couldn't work because of the amount of services that they were required to take. So that's one of the things that I'm going to touch upon, in which they unfairly, I think they unfairly don't work around people's schedule. They kind of force you, because of the case, to work around them, and it kind of puts people in a financial and a just as far as their job, a professional and financial dilemma, in which they're trying to maintain some normalcy in their life in order to. Um, what usually typically happens is, you can contact any child protective service anonymously, so you don't have to identify yourself. And in that, anybody can call and say, hey, so and so did this and that, they live here, there. um a person can get a hold to that, and the caseworker on their end, they get a hold to it. The supervisor pretty much brings a field investigator to come out and investigate you, your children, your home, how you function. And then based on that report, they'll determine whether or not this case should be moved forward. So there are many instances in which a field service person, a caseworker, come out, they'll evaluate the house and so forth. They see that this is maybe something that doesn't necessarily um, require them to spend their resources on, and they'll send you a letter within 30 days. This is how it works in Texas. It may be different as far as time frames and so forth. I can only talk about just in the state of Texas where I'm at, but particularly within 30 days, they'll investigate you and then let you know whether or not they want your case to continue or not. And if they do want the case to continue, then they're going to basically connect you with a caseworker, put you on their caseload, and then that caseworker will be required to come out and see you so many times a month or so many hours to monitor you, to see if you're doing the things that you need to be doing. If your children remain in the home, although this is happening, they're going to come by and monitor you and the children. And also keep in mind that some of the worst stories you'll see is that, particularly with abuse and certain things, they will come and see the children at school most of the times. And there have been many situations in which, you took your kids to school and they never came back. They have the license to come into schools and evaluate children to see if they've been abused. And if they see that the abuse is there, they're probably going to take those children and put them into their custody. And then they'll contact you to let you know what happened. And then they'll move forward from there. And usually most cases, they'll try to connect the kids with family members, if not family members, friends, if not friends, or somebody that's you are close with. Then they're going to put the kids in foster care. And then from that point on, you're going to have to prove to them that you're basically correcting that behavior in order to reconnect to your children. So that usually is how it happens in Texas. Most caseworkers are overwhelmed with tons of cases. They are required to work 24/7. You don't really have a day off. On your days off, if there's an emergency, you have to go to see that child. If phone calls, you have to take phone calls at any time if something warrants that. It's a very strenuous job that does not pay a lot, and also there's a lot of disgruntled workers who, like you said, there's a lot of things in which you wondering why this happened. Well, partly why some of these things happen is because there are a lot of people that are not happy with their job working in this system, and they may let out their anger, their frustrations out on the people that they're serving. And some may show apathy, some may be overbearing. There are tons of situations in which I would say at least 40 to 50% of my clients had some issues at one time with their caseworker, where they were arguing, they were pissed off at one another. It was this, they didn't agree with this or that. And as a therapist, I had to serve as an intermediary between the two to kind of see what the issues are, kind of give an unbiased perspective on things, and kind of hone in both parties to let them understand that, you know, this we're supposed to be doing within the interest of the child. You know, whatever vendettas or whatever issues personality wise that we don't like with each other, as the caseworker, you're supposed to be monitoring the parents. They're supposed to be following the conditions of C.P.S. If we don't do those things, there's going to be problems, and at the end of the day, the children are the most affected. When I first entered into doing C.P.S, which was back in 2006, 2007, I saw a lot of things that I didn't understand. I didn't understand that, you know, how effortlessly kids were taken out the home when they probably didn't warrant it. I've seen situations in which kids should have been taken out of the homes and they were not. And to me, it's all very subjective, and it's based on the caseworker, the field investigator. They can determine a lot, or the supervisor. The data that they document, the documentation is vital in determining whether or not this child is supposed to be taken out of the home or not. Now, when it comes to our people in particular, my first early cases that when I first began, this is when I was contracting with another company. I'm gonna be honest with you. There were cases that were basically filed because one family member didn't like another family member and they wanted to get back at them, so they called C.P.S and said so and so did this. That was very frustrating to me, and to see that, because I feel like there are a lot of resources being wasted on cases like that, as opposed to dealing with, as you talked about, the real cases that and sometimes go ignored, or they overlook them. And one of the reasons why they're overlooked is because they have too many cases that are being filed. Some of these cases does not require a full C.P.S investigation per se. Some of these cases require the 30-day evaluation, and then they move forward. But there are a ton of cases in which mom didn't like the way her daughter was raising the children, so she called and say she's abusing the children when there's no sign of abuse. They test the mother and find out the mom has marijuana in her system. You're looking at 6 months, and that parent herself will be taking parenting classes, and she will be taking drug and alcohol classes, or substance abuse classes. And on top of that, depending on how her behaviors and her cooperating, may have to do counseling services too. And that's how that happens. And I've seen cases last 2 years over nonsense, like literally over nonsense. Now, I've seen some horrific. I've actually had I want to say, yeah, I've actually had 2 C.P.S cases that actually made national. No, actually 3. I had 3 C.P.S cases that made national news. In which some things occurred that were way out of bounds, and so forth. And I actually saw one of them in a national newspaper. I saw one in national state news, and I saw another one that was on a national news syndicate show in regards to the things that happened and so forth. And so it could be a very overwhelming experience, particularly if you didn't necessarily wrong. And usually when you're seeing these people, they're very pissed off, they're mad, they're upset, they're mad at everybody. And they're going to be mad at me because, you know, they're just looking at me, even though I'm there to help. They looking at me just as another person that's visiting them all the time, talking to them, basically another person that takes them away from their normal routines and so forth. And so, you know, that's kind of the situation. And now in the state of Texas, I mean, I know every state's different, but particularly in southern states, particularly Texas, most of the caseworkers are going to be African American women. You're going to rarely see African American men working there, even though I have seen some. But the overwhelming majority are going to be African American women, particularly in southern states. I know for a fact in Louisiana, Texas, and some other states, you're going to see mostly Black women. You'll see other groups of people, but I've been doing this for over 15 years. I've seen the major, and I've done it in multiple counties. I've worked, let's see, I've done at least 8 different counties at one time. I did the counties around Harris County in Houston, and also Dallas County in the city of Dallas. I've worked the neighboring counties, particularly Collin County and Ellis County, and so forth. So in Tarrant County also. So I've worked a multitude of different counties and so forth, different regions of Texas, and it's pretty much almost the same. You see the same type of clients having the same issues, very mad, upset with the system, wanting to know when their case is going to be closed. They may complete all of the requirements, and then they may say, no, we're not convinced. We want you to do 6 more classes. We want you to do 2 more, another month or 2, things of that sort. I mean, it's things like that happen. I've also had cases that were transferred from other different cities, in which the people were living in one place and they moved to Texas and the C.P.S. case followed, or they transferred out. I had a couple of cases in which I had a client one client was in Arkansas. She moved from Houston to Arkansas. I had another client that was living in Georgia. And for some reason, based on what was happening, I was still providing virtual services, even though they were out of state. Some kind of way, I guess, paperwork wise, if they wanted to continue the services based on the child still living in the state where they felt the abuse was taking place. So so that's somewhat like a picture of what happens. One of the things that I did, it was also very taxing for me, particularly when I was working for another company. Pretty much had a small caseload, was a little bit less stressful. Once I went into business for myself, I started seeing more things because of me being a business owner and a provider, and I'm monitoring the services. When you're doing it at that level, as far as monitoring, and you're the person that has the contract, then there's more things that you have to be responsible for. You have to talk to people, be involved in family meetings and so forth. You have to go to court more, things of, all of those things. You have a lot more things behind the scenes and documentation wise that you're responsible for. You also talk directly with legal counsel per se about different things, asking questions. Your documentation has to be on point. They're going to want to confiscate those documents, the courts, the lawyers, so to speak. So it's a little bit more. So I kind of dealt with it all the way around in that perspective, as far as seeing things from a lot of different points of views. And I've seen situations, the courts can give you a lawyer per se. The child can have a lawyer. The parents that are trying to get the children are trying, child. There's other organizations such as child advocacy that plays a part in advocating for the children and maintaining certain things and services. The school system, things of that sort. Other 501c3 type social service agencies may be involved. There's a lot of things that can be involved in that in regards to looking out for the best interest of the child. When you assess why a child is being taken out of the home, say that the parent loses custody, it's usually my perspective, most situations because the parents fail to cooperate with the courts, or they fail to cooperate with CPS. And I know, like for some people, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
Can
you.
you hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, so for some people, that have been involved, they'll say, they mistreated me. There was discrimination. There was racism, and yes, that does happen, and it happens from our own people in there. And it happens from other people. But what I have seen, the overwhelming majority of parents that lost their children, it usually is because of drugs. They didn't stop getting on drugs, or they just simply ignored fulfilling their end of the bargain as far as the services that they needed to provide to prove that they have rehabilitated from the mistakes that they made towards their children, and they've corrected it, and they're able to they trust you to have your children back. So,
Well, I wanna show you something right quick. I want to show you this quick 4-minute video, and I want to get your thoughts on it. All right. Fair use, God damn it, fair use.
A report from the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services shows that Black children are disproportionately taken into CPS custody more often than kids of other races. Fox 26's Donnelly Keith joining us live now, looking into that and what's being done about it.
Well, many advocates say not enough is being done, and they say the problem of African-American children overwhelmingly being taken away from their parents and placed in CPS care has happened for far too long and for more than 60 years.
The home video and pictures of the Birch family show smiling, happy faces. What you don't see is the 8-month battle Reniqua Birch endured as she fought to get her kids back out of CPS custody.
I was working to pay legal fees. I emptied out my savings.
Birch is actually a social worker. 3 of her kids are adopted. The 4 youngest were taken by CPS in 2018 as she was going through a divorce. And 3 weeks into a summer day camp, someone reported her to CPS.
The 4-year-old, she said he had a bruise on his back, and it was like yellow, and it was close to his bottom. And as she was describing it, I said, "Are you talking about his birthmark?" She was.
In fact, she says everything the CPS worker pointed out, such as the ringworm her son was being treated for, had a simple explanation. She believes her kids were taken because of the color of her skin.
If I was a white mom that had adopted kids, especially Black kids, I would be praised.
I think that unfortunately white families are given a presumption of fitness, where I don't think that we see the same, especially with the African-American families that we serve.
It's not a surprise at all.
Alan Detleff is the Dean of the Graduate College of Social Work at University of Houston and a former CPS worker.
There was a study that I was involved in the mid-2000s when the state was mandated to look at disproportionality that showed that Black children in Texas were 77% more likely than white children to be removed from their homes in lieu of receiving services in the home.
Also, African-American children are less likely to be allowed to stay with family members.
Relatives are barred either because of over-policing in the community, so they have criminal history.
Travis County State District Court Judge Aurora Martinez-Jones points to 2 cases she had where 2 women were arrested in different traffic stops for drug possession. The police officer allowed the white mom to call her mother to pick up her child, but the Black mom wasn't given the same chance, and her child was taken away by CPS.
Much of the public has become aware of the harm and the trauma that parents and children experience when children are separated from parents at the border. That same harm and trauma occurs when children are separated from their parents by child protection agencies.
It doesn't make sense that the system that's supposed to be there to help support and protect children is causing additional trauma to children.
Now, CPS says overrepresentation of minorities in a system is found across many systems, including child welfare, education, juvenile justice, criminal justice, and healthcare. This is true nationally and in Texas, the statement says. Statistics show those who report allegations of abuse and neglect are more likely to make reports regarding African-American children, and minority children are more likely to be removed from their families. DFPS is committed to partnering with representatives across systems and communities to listen and address issues of disproportionality in CPS, is what the statement says. And again, it took Reniqua Birch about 8 months to get her kids back from CPS custody. The Houston nonprofit Foster Care Advocacy Center, which offers free services, says that any family who has a CPS investigation against them should contact their group immediately when that investigation starts, because they say once the child is removed, the family only has about a 1 in 5 chance of getting their kiddo back. And we do have information for that group on our website. This is certainly a topic we will continue to follow. Reporting live, I'm Damalie Keith, Fox 26 News.
Facts.
So, Brother D. Darrell, how much, and hold on a second, because shout out to Brother Deshaun for the $5 super chat. I appreciate that, Brother Deshaun, longtime supporter of the T.P.O.T YouTube page. He says, salute Brother X, the Proper Thought series and chat. Appreciate that $5 super chat, my brother. You get this. I appreciate you dropping your hard-earned coins on this platform. So how about that, Brother D. Darrell? Is that a thing where, you know, if you black and you got problems going on with the kids, you're more likely to get your kids taken away as opposed to a white person with the same situation, same amount of kids, same circumstance? They'll get more chances and less likely to get their kids taken.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's definitely a difference in treatment that is fueled in racism and as far as the way Black people are perceived. That goes with Black fathers and Black mothers per se. I've seen fathers with children. They didn't have a mother around. The father took care of the children, and the same thing happened. I've actually seen situations where a white woman had mixed children, they were treated the same. You know, it's across the board. I mean, children, African American children, are high at risk. To me, it's relatively similar to Black men being targeted in the criminal justice system. You know, I see, but they won't tell you is the economics behind it. You see, what they're not going to tell you is that how foster care agencies make a lot of money from this. They won't tell you foster care group homes, adoption agencies, foster care agencies, they make a lot of money from this. And again, also CPS, also they get funding. The more children that are in there, the more funding they get, the more resources they can obtain. So see, they're monetizing. Also, you gotta look at the fact that all of the services involved, the testing, the psychological testing, some of these parents actually get charged for crimes, then have to go to jail and get lawyers and deal with criminal stuff. That all of these things is a continuum of why it's so difficult to get the children back once they're taken away. Now, from my perspective, what I do is I let the parent know whether they clearly abuse a child or not. I'm here to help you attempt to get your children back as long as you have shown the ability to benefit from therapy to the point where you can function and take care of your children. I want to see people keep their children. There are very few situations that I had where there's no way in hell I felt the child should get the parent should get the children back. I've seen most of those cases were usually medical neglect, or the parent had a psychological disorder or mental health issue that I felt it would be irresponsible to put them back in that situation to be with them for the most part. Now, what I did notice, and this is something that I slowly saw, and it kind of goes hand in hand with the opioid epidemic and pandemic per se. When I first began doing CPS cases, I would get, substance abuse cases and so forth from 2006 to about 2000, I want to say 13. Then I think they changed it and split the two things up. But from 2006 to 2013, I would get, some would be mainly substance abuse, mental. It was all a combined contract. And so what I saw was that even though they would immediately test you once you, no matter what, they just wanted a sample just to see if you're clean or not. What I began to see was that particularly those that were using drugs like meth and so forth, and that were pregnant, I saw a huge increase from 2012 to 13, or they were using PCP and things like that, where it was I'm going to say pregnant women, okay, were basically tested or had a child that had these drugs in the system. For some reason, I don't know what happened. I don't know the reason, or just, but that was for some reason, 2012 to 2013, I saw a huge influx of type of cases. And also I saw that CPS became more concerned about what type of medications that a parent could take. And I've seen situations where parents, like, say, if they were taking pain pills, they were taking psych meds that were seen as, opioids and so forth, things of that sort, particularly the pain pills and things such as like different type of psychiatric drugs. If they found that in your system, they would automatically make you go take substance abuse classes, and they would continually drug test you, knowing that you have a medical prescription to take these drugs. See, and I saw, and to me, it angered people, and it somewhat just this happened a lot, where I began getting cases where people were taking Percocet or something like that, or some type of other drug or whatever, pain pill that they needed, and then they had to discontinue taking that medicine because the fact of was, and they wanted to test you to see if you were abusing the drug, or even if you showed that you were taking this and it was prescription, they would still deem that as a failed test. I thought that was grossly unfair. Taking something like Somas or other different type Oxycontin and things like that, they basically would test you and not want you to fail those tests, even though you may have needed that. And these parents had to go through hoops to in order to be able to continue taking this much needed and so forth to do it. And when this would happen, parents would immediately get upset. They get emotional. They don't want to listen to them. They'll try to bypass not returning phone calls. And I would tell parents, when you do things like this, it is, you're not helping yourself, and you're not helping your child reconnect with you. You're actually making things a lot worse. I advise you to follow along with what they want you to do, whether you like it or not. The main goal is to get your children back, to reconnect to your child, retransition your child back at home, and they basically give you a stamp of approval that this case is closed, and you move on with your life. But again, a lot of these parents, they don't follow the requirements. They don't listen to me or other people. They want to be resistant, and the resistance doesn't help them. Now, particularly as they're talking about in Harris County, very diverse. And the fact that, Houston is basically, I would say, maybe 20%, 25 to maybe 20, 18 to 20% African American, and it makes for more than overwhelming majority of these cases. Also, that's not pointed out is that Hispanic population also maybe not as high as us, but they also are equally targeted too, because I've had a large percentage of Hispanic cases with Hispanic parents and children that, particularly most of my cases are usually Hispanic and Black. And I may have maybe 5 to 10% that may be white or Asian per se. But they were pretty much, it all deals with the way the investigation, which is subjective, the fact that they drug test parents. So that there are some contributing factors that lead to that. And another thing they're talking about, the fact that when the person indicated that when the Black person asked to can their parents, they told them no or whatever, or they felt they were not adequate to take care of the children, but the white parent was allowed to call her mother to go pick up the children. And see that again goes with the subjectivity that's involved in it, in which people are not given a fair handshake. And I'm going to say this. I think that the Department of Family Protective Services should exhaust all options to prevent a child from going to foster care. And in many situations, if it's not like a sister or mom or something like that, or close relative, that they're going to immediately put that child in foster care. They're going to put them in the custody of someone else. And this is, unfortunately, this is what has happened. But what you heard them say, this has been going on for 60 years. But my thing is that, again, we have to look at the economics behind it. You know, that economic reason this happened. There are people benefiting from this. You know, and that's the reason why it has, you know, people they want to profess as if this is just naturally happening. It's systematic issues. No, that's economic reasons that are also involved in it. This is just not because policy itself, but there's an economic value to having children placed in these homes, in these group homes, adoption, all of these things. There's an economic reason for that. There are people who benefit from that. You know, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I get that. I get that, man. And I got another video or two that I want to show you as well. But shout out to Perfect Blackness, my Chi-Town brother, with the $5 super chat. He says, how is CPS supposed to handle repeated false reports against one person? When you drop coins on this platform, you get this.
I'm glad. That's a good question. I'm glad.
I appreciate you dropping your hard-earned coins on this platform. I want to show you. I want to show you another video, brother D. Darrell.
Okay.
I want to show you another video because we got a few of them on deck tonight. I want to, let me see, get to it right quick. Because I think there's a lot of this shit going on too. Maybe this isn't the overwhelming majority of cases, but I think a lot of this shit is going on too, man. Fair use, Negroes, fair use. Let me put my fair use sign back up. Fair use, God damn it. Fair use.
Her job, investigate whether children were abused. Her employer, the Pasco County Sheriff's Office, put her in cuffs for falsifying an investigation. Pasco County Sheriff's Office investigators look into about 6,500 cases of possible child abuse every year.
And now they're zeroing in on 95 cases handled by one of their own, CPI, Kaylin Scott. Why? Because with 8 on your side, senior investigator reporter Steve Andrews tells us she admitted she falsified reports about an abuse case.
Yeah, and that brings into question every case that she investigated and every document she submitted since she started working at the Pasco County Sheriff's Office. 24-year-old Kaylin Scott may not realize it, but one attorney says when she falsified a report about interviewing and drug testing a family involved in a child abuse case,
fair use, Negroes, fair use,
shadow that will loom over the child protective system.
If I were a judge, I would have to go back and wonder, can I trust the information I'm being given?
Michelle D'Angelo has represented both sides in child dependency cases. Scott, she claims, betrayed a trust.
I think this is probably one of the most egregious abuses you could have.
Pasco County Sheriff Major Jeff Peak.
So this came to light when one of our CPIs went out and investigated a CPI investigation involving the same family that she had
The later investigation sparked when a newborn baby tested positive for an opiate-related drug.
If the child was born with this and you were pregnant when this other investigation was going on, how come this didn't come up then when you were drug tested?
Detectives investigated, confronted Scott. She fessed up. They arrested her. According to Major Peak, the sheriff's office is looking through all 95 cases Scott handled in the little less than a year she worked as a CPI.
We're going through each case systematically, looking at anything that would identify a pattern.
Michelle D'Angelo believes when a CPI lies, it puts children in jeopardy.
We're not protecting kids anymore. We're leaving kids potentially at risk because they're still in this home because she's lied and said she visited, everything was fine.
Now, according to the sheriff's office, investigators found 3 more cases in which Scott claims she interviewed people that she didn't talk to. Detectives forwarded those cases to the Pasco County State Attorney's Office. Prosecutors will decide whether or not she faces more charges. She's already looking at 1 third-degree felony.
Well,
right. It happens.
Is there a lot of that where they make up shit and lie and
I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna say there is some of that happens. I haven't seen a lot of that. I haven't heard of a lot of that. I think it goes on, but I think that because of the scrutiny of a lot of that documentation, I think the average caseworker is too scared to do that. I would say it's probably done, but it's not done a lot. It happens, but I'm going to say from my professional standpoint, I don't think that people are pretty much documenting crazy stuff or whatever just for the sake of doing it, because they do understand the scrutiny that documentation goes under. That paperwork goes through a lot of hands, and so particularly if this case goes to court, if it's something that involves court with lawyers and judges, yeah, they're gonna find something. I definitely don't think. I think that the average caseworker understands that you do have those that go rogue and they do stuff like this, and but I don't think I'm gonna say I don't think that happens a lot. It happens enough where it's too much. I would say 1 is too much, but I do think it happens, and you do have. I can recall 2 CPS workers where that was actually they were actually accused of that in my whole 15 years of working CPS. It was a black lady I knew. Well, they both were black actually. It was a black lady that I knew in a suburb outside of Houston, and there was one inside the city of Houston that was accused of having sketchy documentation. But I'm gonna tell you this: I've seen situations, man, in court where it was sketchy documentation, and the lawyers took their butts up on identifying this in court. I've seen that happen multiple times. So, but it does happen. I don't think it happens a lot, but if it is happening, the occurrences are 1 too many. That, from my perspective.
Well, what often happens, what I've seen happen more than once, I've seen the stories. One story comes to mind where this little boy was being beaten, he was being abused, he was being burnt, all kinds of shit was going on, and CPS never stepped in, and the boy eventually ended up being killed, and they ended up charging the mother, the mother's boyfriend, and then they turned around and they charged the CPS workers as well for this kid's murder, right?
For neglect. They charged them for neglect.
Yes, they charged them because they were at this house and they saw this stuff going on and they never did anything. And I can't remember it. I saw the story on Netflix. I can't remember.
You know what
the story,
happened? I'm gonna tell you what happened. You know why they were charged? I'm gonna tell you why they were charged. They were charged because they never went to the home. That's why.
Okay.
And that happens a lot. That again, there are a lot of CPS workers that don't see their clients and so forth like they're supposed to. It's a very flexible job that you don't necessarily have to be in the office to do. A lot of CPS, they're unsupervised, to be honest with you, where they are basically given all these cases. You can work from anywhere, from home or whatever, to do your paperwork. They give you a phone, computer. You don't have to be in the office. And so CPS workers pretty much work 99, maybe 95% of the time out of the office. And they only go to the office when it's necessary. So what I think would happen in that scenario, the reason why they were charged is because they never went and did an investigation, and they documented and lied on the document. Again, it goes back to the documentation. They documented that they saw that child, and they didn't. And they probably said the child was in good health, didn't have any form of bruising or abuse and all that other different stuff. And that's probably why they were charged. They were charged for, number one, not doing their job, and they falsified legal documents, because that documentation is legal. Those are legal documents. When I see clients, all of that stuff is legal. Everything that I document is legal, and I can be held accountable in a court of law if I basically committed fraud or just didn't see the client and said that happened. That you have to be held accountable to that. And so they were held accountable because they didn't do their job, and they documented that they did. And I've seen situations like that happen too. And I guarantee you, I mean, I don't know the paperwork, but my best guess is that the reason why that happened is because they never did a face-to-face visit, home visit, and they documented that they did.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that
happens
does put them on the hook for the little boy's death. Then if they were charged with, overseeing the boy, they knew that he was abused and all that kind of stuff, they are on the hook for his death.
Yeah.
They're on the hook for his death.
Yes,
they
because
are.
I guarantee you the reason why they charged is because they documented that child had no signs of abuse. I guarantee you that was what happened, because there's no way you're going to see that and overlook it. You didn't go by. They probably made phone calls. They probably didn't even do phone calls. I've had situations where clients complain that, and I would ask the client, I say, so when the last time you saw your CPS client, your CPS caseworker? Oh, it's been 2-3 months. They called me here and there, but I ain't seen them in so long. They said they were going to see me, but they never came. That happens. So in that situation, I almost guarantee you that that's exactly what happened. They claimed that they saw this client, they saw the kids and the parents, and they didn't, and they lied, and it backfired on them. And all you required, and to be honest with you, you're required in the state of Texas to see a family at least once a month. It's not that hard to see at least once a month.
So I mean, but there's really no way. I mean, there's really no way to make sure they do their job, though. Like, I mean, what?
Well,
I mean,
I'm gonna say this. It's really, I'm gonna put it like this. Day to day, I'm gonna say no. There's no way you'll know, unless, because they don't have the resource to call every client that's in CPS supervision. Also, I'm gonna say, how old was this child? Because how did this child go to school and they never said anything? I'm gonna be suspicious of them too. Was this child school age?
Yeah, well, his name was Gabriel Fernandez. Y'all look up the name Gabriel Fernandez, or better yet,
if that child was in daycare, which is
I think he was 8.
Oh yeah, the schools should have been also held accountable for that.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think he was 8.
Schools and daycares, if he was in school, they should also have been investigated, because they it said the extremity of these bruises, they own this.
Yeah. I mean,
You know?
because I watched the documentary. It's called it's on Netflix. It's called The Trials of Gabriel Fernandez. His mother, she was ultimately convicted. She was sentenced to life. The mother's boyfriend was sentenced to the death penalty, I believe. And the social workers, I believe they got acquitted.
They got acquitted?
I believe they got acquitted, but they did get charged.
Right. They
Yeah, I do
probably
believe
got
they got
acquitted
acquitted.
because they had some good lawyers, and whether again it goes back to the documentation, because it's hard to. I can see even though they probably got acquitted, they probably still got fired and could probably. I know the minimum they should have got fired, because there's no way. It's hard to prove that they were per se evolved. You know, I think they should have. I think they overcharged. They probably overcharged them. Whatever charge they gave them, that's probably why they got acquitted. But they had good lawyers. They probably had somebody from the agency, or they afforded to buy their own lawyers. And to be honest with you, another reason these kids get taken away is because most of these parents can't afford lawyers to fight their battles. And I'm gonna say this: they do not like when lawyers are involved, because when lawyers are involved, that means that scrutiny of what they're doing is under a bigger microscope, and they have to be more specific on everything legally, everything. And so the best way to fight CPS is to get. Matter of fact, I advise people, if your children got taken away, or the first thing I would do, I guarantee you, if you put a lawyer involved, if a lawyer's involved, the whole context of that case changes. You're going to see the caseworkers act different, supervisors, everybody, all the intermediaries and in between that contact you, they all are going to act different because they know you got legal representation. And if they mess up, that lawyer will document that and hold them accountable in a court of law. So, but to be honest, as we all know, most of these parents can't afford the representation, and they're just they're ignorant of or not being knowledgeable of the system and how it works, and they're just just going along, just trying to make do with whatever, trying to just function in the manner in which they're told by them. But I would encourage people, if you do have one and something is not going right, I would immediately call a lawyer. I'm not going to worry myself with caseworkers. The lawyers can handle all of that. And I think if more African Americans sought legal representation, a family law person or whatever that practices family law per se with children, the whole context of that case changes totally.
Now, Latin Patriot says no one has to answer the door to anyone unless they have a warrant. Is that a thing? Like, because I've heard that before. I've heard that before where, you don't have to answer the door to C.P.S. if you don't want to, you don't have to let them come in the house.
I'm gonna say this. Okay. I'm gonna say this legally. And this did come up a few times. Legally, you don't legally have to answer the door. But what's going to happen is that they're going to document you being incompliant, and they're going to
come back with the police, right?
Yes, they're going to come back.
That's what they usually do.
They're going to come back with police, or they're going to document you being incompliant, and then what they're going to do is, let's say this is a minor situation that if they get an investigation, it's over in 30 days. They send you a letter, we get the investigation. You not answering prolongs the case and causes them to open up a full-fledged investigation, even if it's not even needed. But because you were incompliant, it raises suspicion. Yes, you have the legal right not to answer the door, but you also have to understand what are the consequences of that. If you don't have a lawyer, The only way that makes sense is if you have legal representation behind you. But if you don't have legal representation, I wouldn't advise anybody to do that.
Well,
Because,
I mean, I've heard of people getting CPS and child services called on them on some bogus shit. So,
yeah,
you know,
that happens
you
a
got
lot.
these people, you look up and these people knocking at your damn door. I mean, you're not going to be that receptive to them, especially if they come in on some old bogus shit that you know is not true. Like if someone
Exactly.
had
And to
called,
me, based on that, is more reason to go ahead and open the door, start the process, let them evaluate you, prove that you're not committing abuse, and get it out the way. You're better off doing that instead of being resistant, not answering the door, and dodging.
well, if they're at your door, that means the investigation has already started, right? If they're at your
I know
door.
that the investigation started, but people think by not answering the door, they're not collecting data. But even though they're not collecting data on how you're operating, they will document that you are being in compliance. And so
because if they whatever they do, whatever CPS does is signed off by some judge, right? It's not like they just got this. They don't have this apparatus inside the CPS office. They have to put this in front of a judge, and a judge has to say, okay, I'm signing off on y'all taking the kids or whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah, a judge can pretty much do what they want. If they give a judge document of a belief of harm to the children, and parent resistant, and it's unfounded, the judge has the right to say, okay, won't give a warrant or take the children if they feel whatever. The judge can pretty much do what they want. If a judge wants to do that, they'll do that.
Wow.
I mean,
so
judges have a lot of power.
Oh yeah, I know that. But what I'm saying is I know that they just can't come in and take your kids without some type of, they need some type of legal stamp of approval to come take your kid.
They just can't take your children unless there's reason to believe something happened or there's evidence of something potentially happening. Like, say for instance, if you are resistant, let's say it's a sexual abuse case, and somebody said that some guy, the girl boyfriend touched the kids and so forth, and you're not answering the door. They're not taking chances with stuff like that. In their mind, they're thinking the child could potentially still be abused, sexually abused, and you're just not answering the door. You're not, responding to them. The judge may make a decision. If they continue to resist, we're going to take these children. And they'll go to, especially the school age, they'll just go to the school and take them.
Yeah,
and nothing
because
and nothing could be found wrong with them, and they'll just take them.
Yeah, but I've seen cases where CPS took the kid for stupid shit.
Yeah.
It was a girl. Her name was I believe Kiari Harris. I believe her name was, and they took her children because she forgot to submit a form. She was homeschooling her children, and she forgot to submit a form, I believe. And they came and they took her kids based on educational neglect, which is the stupidest thing I think I've ever heard of. Because
no, it ain't the stupid. I'm gonna tell you why it's not. It's not as stupid as you may think it is. Because I'm a guy, brother X. I've seen situations. Matter of fact, I had a situation similar to what you're saying, and the parents called this Hispanic lady, and she had a husband, whatever. She had three children. She had three girls. They were teenage, and one of them was actually mixed black and Hispanic. And it was something similar to that, where she did not file the proper documents. Come to find out, once they went to educational testing, those children were below grade level on everything. and that's why she didn't do it, because they may undergo some testing to see if they're on level, and it could have been something that required them to do some psychological educational testing on their IQ, reading ability, verbal acuity, and so forth. So I know it sounds like that, but there could be other reasons behind that. I mean, it's not far-fetched. Now, I'm not saying she didn't do a good job. I don't know you obviously know the case better than I do, but I've had cases. I don't deal with a lot of cases that are homeschooled, but I had a case. My most severe case like that was a Hispanic mother, three girls. They were like 13, 15, and 16, I think. And she's quote unquote was homeschooling them, and they were doing stuff through computer. They was going to this type of virtual thing. And these kids, all three of those kids were below grade level. You're reading, writing, arithmetic, and so forth. And she did complete some things, and so they were forced to come in and force those children to go to school. They're going to take the child away, but they actually had to do some testing, and she didn't fill out the paperwork so that those kids could be tested. And that's the reason they were below. They were not getting the proper education.
Now, I'm all for kids not being dumb. All right, I'm all for that. But as a parent, don't you have the right to allow your kids to be dumb? Now, I know it's not desirable, but
no,
you have the right.
You don't,
for your,
I would
don't
say
you have the right for your kids to be dumb?
You have the right to not supervise your children to make sure that they're not educated appropriately. If you're a person that doesn't care about education and so forth, but what you don't have the right is to not allow them to have the access to proper education.
Okay.
That's the difference. You can't. She was better off letting them go to school and not do work, as opposed to taking them out of school, and now the onus is on you to make sure they're educated, and you not giving them the proper homeschooling. Now the responsibility is more on you that was on the school system. You know, if they just went to school, you could have blamed the school for it. But now you're doing it, now you.
I just don't like the fact of, because when you think of protective services, right? When you think about protection, you would think that these people step in, before the quote unquote abuse starts, or before the quote unquote neglect starts. It seems like with CPS, they're always coming in after the fact, after the abuse, after the neglect, after
it has
whatever.
to be reported first. And so if it's not reported, they won't know. So now the only thing I could say where we're looking at preventive measures is if they allow the children to stay at home, and you're putting in the proper preventative measures to make sure that the abuse doesn't go on. That's the purpose of doing the house visits. That's the purpose of communicating and so forth, to make people drug tests and to basically physically evaluate the children, their arms, their body, to make sure that in harm. Are you telling the person that alleged, let's say it's a husband and wife, they have 4 children, the husband, abused the children, he has to leave the home. Things like that. Those are measures that are in place to prevent the abuse from continuing. He didn't leave the home, then they're going to make him do and other different things and monitor him through that. But what you're not supposed to do, which kind of goes into, like, if you're in a relationship or married, and you're not supposed to allow this guy to come back, or female, and you continue to do so, you're to basically not listening to following their guidelines as far as that, what they call it's called a family service plan. And in a family service plan, you kind of put out the goals and things that these parents are supposed to be doing. And so if they're not following that's their way of that's their only way of preventing. But as far as an isolated event happening, they won't know unless somebody reported. That's why they have established that you can contact them anonymously to report on so and so. The problem is that the anonymous reporting can be deemed as excessive. And someone talked about, what do you do about the repetitive stuff? Well, unfortunately, if you had more than one case, they're going to repetitive case. They're going to look at you as being high risk. Also, if they notice that somebody is following, just constantly doing stuff, what they'll do is they'll evaluate that and make a decision through their meetings whether or not they see somebody's repetitively making these unfounded, accusations that don't necessarily fit, with what's really going on. So that's up to them to make that decision on that. I think it needs to be handled a lot better, particularly if, let's say, you have an ongoing case and you're getting ready to finish, and then two or three people just, spontaneously report, but you've been there. There's no going on, and therefore you're just getting ready to discharge them. But then I think it's necessary to not, to basically evaluate the response, but then to follow through what you're already getting ready to do. Because if people can just file for anything, if you've been monitoring these people for 6 months, and then the last month somebody just decides to call just for no reason, but you know this client and you know what they're doing and you know that they're following things on the path of reconnecting, I think that you would want to document it, talk to them. If you don't find that, then you need to disregard it, just like you would for any other case in which you found no abuse that took place. But unfortunately, there's a database in which they add up that if you continuously getting reported, they look at you as being high risk. And when you are labeled as high risk, that means they're going to take their time. That case may be open for a year, 10 months to a year. They're going to slowly,
well, this is my problem. This is my problem with CPS, because I have a picture here, one that I like to refer to as the Momnificent Seven. And every single one of these hoes that you're looking at murdered their children. Every single one of them.
Wow.
Where the hell was CPS? Oh, CPS couldn't stop none of these murders? None?
The only way they can stop, I'm going to say this, the only way they could have stopped the murders is if they murdered those children while a CPS case was going on, then yes, they to me are negligent. If a case was not filed against them, then they don't have a way of knowing.
Well, that goes on to, okay, fine. I'll give you that argument. Maybe no one ever called, but that puts these other people on the hook. The mama, the sister, the cousin, the boyfriend, the next door neighbor. I don't think you just wake up one day and kill your children. I think this is some shit that's ongoing. Like, for instance, this chick here, her name is Michelle Blair. All right. Y'all see my pointer? This chick killed 2 of her children and had them in the deep freezer for 2 years before they were discovered. So how come CPS didn't notice that these children were out of school? Educational neglect. How did they not notice that they've never seen these kids were never at the doctor? They were never outside. None of the neighbors noticed that these children were missing for 2 whole years.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the school. The school
to me is on part. I would say the school for that. the school should have been, not only the school, but the court system should have looked at truancy for those children. Why are they not going to school for 2 years? I mean, that I hear what you're saying in regards to C.P.S, but in that particular situation, I'm going to have to blame the schools and the court system, the juvenile court system, because the schools should have reported this, and the legal system should have looked at truancy. Why these 2 kids are not in school? Because a ticket should have been given or something. So, and see, to be honest with you, a lot of cases happen due to the school system and then the criminal justice system. They usually report and refer when they see things, and either of those institutions contacted C.P.S.
Yeah, I mean,
so that's the only thing that if they're not given the report, there's nothing they can really do.
But aren't the schools like mandated reporters, like doctors?
They
and,
are required. They are required.
If they see something wrong, they're supposed to say, "Hey, look, these children haven't been in school for 6 months, a year and a half, 2 years. I mean, 2 whole years.
Right?
They were in the deep freezer, and no one wondered where these children were because they were school age. They weren't infants; they were school age, and no one wondered. I mean, that to me, that's a failing of the school system and a failing of C.P.S, because these are the type of cases that you would think that they would be dead on to, right? The kid hasn't been in school in 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, a year, 2 years, and no alarm bells ring, no red flags wave. They just say, "Oh, what the hell? Who cares?"
I agree. And so, but if nothing is reported to them, to be honest with you, to look at this, just looking at it in the manner in which I've seen this done, the school system should have reported, sent out at least documentation to the family address. Nothing came back. The kid is not there. They should have checked out and see if there was been attending school anywhere. If that kid is not attending school at all, they should have contacted, just because I know for a fact, particularly with truancy, if this was black teenagers, they would have called the judges, the juvenile, because I know for a fact, with the truancy and so forth, they ticket $500 for these children, not, so and they have to go to court for truancy. So at least, at minimum, the school should have contacted the juvenile justice.
Yep.
Or whatever services. At minimum, that should have been done.
I think the same way of this chick here in the middle. Good folk. Her name is Nicole Johnson. Nicole Johnson, she starved 2 children to death. One child was 7. The other child was 5. When they found the children weighed 20 pounds. Okay. When they did discover the children were discovered in the trunk of her car inside of a suitcase. They had she just let them starve to death. Now, a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, also school-aged children, but no one noticed they were out of school all that time because she rolled around with their bodies in the trunk, I think, for like 2 months. No one ever noticed. No one ever noticed that the children were gone, that they weren't in school, they weren't running around, they weren't anything. Meanwhile, she's driving around in her car with their bodies for like 60 days inside the trunk of her car in a suitcase. And the only reason why they found the children is because she got pulled over by the cops and they were going to tow her car because it wasn't registered and didn't have insurance on it. And she opened the trunk, I guess, to try to get the suitcase out, and the cop saw an arm fall out of the suitcase. So now, you done aroused their suspicion. And when they open the suitcase, there's 2 little dead bodies in there that have been starved to death. Where the fuck was C.P.S. then? Where were they?
I hear what you're saying, but again, if they don't get the report, they can't investigate. they're not what I would say a preventive institution where they go out and just look for cases. Like, say for instance, the police goes out and look and search to see if there's crime. CPS doesn't go around looking for cases. You have to report the case, and then they assess the case. They do their investigation. So that's not something. Maybe they need to begin having representatives go out in the field and just monitor places where kids are, just to see if things are okay. But I don't know if they have the resources to do that. That would not be a bad model. That they have, trained professionals just wandering throughout, just like cops do, wander throughout environments where children are, and their issues of abuse. Now, what I can say is this: say a CPS worker is out in the field and they see something that is unjustly done, or witness something done to a child, or they see a kid that is abused physically. Say a CPS worker is, I think they're bound by their job. If they see any form of abuse, whether they're working or not, they have to report that. So that's the only way I could see them just being overt in trying to identify cases or abuse. But they're not designed. They're more designed as a response. Once
they're in your life, you got problems because they can show up at any time. And once you got
man. I'm gonna say it's funny you said that, because I've had CPS workers that I know for a fact came to people's home at 10, 11 o'clock at night just to do a visit, like late. They have done that. There are some that have done that.
Yeah. I've known a couple people, man, who had some dealings, with CPS recently, like within the last, couple of years. And, they had to go through all this bullshit. And one person, the only reason why CPS was on their case was because the kid had got burned, right? The kid had got burned in the house, knocked over something, and they took the kid to the hospital. And I guess one of the nurses or the doctors who treated him referred the case to CPS. And now you got CPS running back and forth, to their house, every time you turn around, because they're thinking that, the child has got burned, purposely. And I've seen where I've seen people get the shit called on them for some bogus shit, but I've also seen where something may have happened to the kid. Maybe the kid broke a finger or broke an arm, and CPS got involved. And not only did they take the kid with the broken arm, they took all the other kids out of the house as well.
Yes, they do that. That's unfortunate. I've seen that happen. Where one child gets abused, they'll take all the kids. I don't agree with that. Unless you can prove that I hope, I'm gonna say this. I don't believe in children being taken out the home unless you can prove that there's suspicion that accidents happen. And unless you can wholeheartedly prove that somebody witnessed or saw some, or let's just say the extremity of the damage that was done to the child, the injury had to have been done by somebody older or what have you, then I don't see that as being a reason to take children unless that suspicion has to take place. And again, man, as I said, that is doing that, you taking all the children. That means these children that go somewhere. They have to be placed somewhere, and they have to pay another institutional facility to house and take care of these children.
Yes.
And I disagree with that. I feel like unless you see that a child had multiple bruises, or let's say the extent of it definitely had to be somebody hurting them or somebody push them off, just something. I don't see accidental incidents should not be a reason to take children away from their parents.
Yeah. I mean, you're taking them away on some old bullshit, and the child is obviously not hurt. They're not underfed. They're not malnourished. They're not sick. They're not nothing. I mean, for you to come take a kid just because a parent didn't go to some fucking anger management class, to me is just ridiculous. But shout out
I hear
to
what
Brother
you're saying,
Perfect
but
Blackness.
if that's a requirement, they have to do it.
Yeah, I know. Shout out to my brother Perfect Blackness with another $5 super chat. He says the schools didn't ask about the kids' school attendance because they were in the mother's custody, and schools always give mothers the benefit of the doubt. I appreciate that $5.
I'm gonna have to disagree with that.
I appreciate you dropping your hard-earned coins on this platform. So you disagree with that assertion?
Yeah, they don't give black mothers the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna have to disagree on that one. I'm gonna have to disagree with them giving mothers benefit of the doubt. Now, I've seen too many situations where they didn't. So there may be instances of that. Particularly if they're not coming to school. No. I don't see them giving mothers benefit of the doubt for that. I don't see that.
Well, it's a crapshoot, right? I mean, they probably take some stories more serious than others, some reports more serious than others.
But if a kid not going to school, just like say they missing 30 days or something, no, I don't. Maybe the kid may have a few days out the week. Okay, but it's something excessive as multiple weeks, when you're going 15, 20 plus days or something like that, no, I don't see I don't see them overlooking that.
Yeah, because I mean, if a child this is what's so disturbing about the Gabriel Hernandez case, because the Gabriel Hernandez case, I mean, they saw this boy come to school with bruises and shit on him. They saw this kid, they saw it. And, the boy eventually was killed by his stepfather and his mother eventually. And they saw this boy forever. And I was glad that they had locked the CPS workers up. I was happy that they had locked them motherfuckers up too.
The school system should have been sued if that was like, say, whomever. They were negligent in that. For them to visually see these things and not report it to anybody, they were negligent.
Yeah. I mean, come on, man. It was just crazy. If y'all get a chance, man, y'all need to check it out. Y'all need to go and check out.
Contact for lists. I've seen teachers see a scratch and call it CPS. I've seen shit like that. So, I'm serious. I've literally seen teachers see a scratch on somebody's arm, and they calling the cops and everybody else.
Y'all need to check it out. It's called The Trials of Gabriel Hernandez on Netflix. If you got Netflix, check it out. I mean, it's a sad, despicable fucking documentary, man. It is. It's sad and despicable all at the same time. One of the few documentaries that I actually watch, because I don't watch a lot of television. I refuse to pollute my brain. But every now and then, my wife can get me to sit down and watch some shit with us. Oh, go watch this with me. So we watch that. And
I don't watch YouTube. I don't watch TV. I'm on YouTube.
Yeah, I don't watch too much TV, but I will watch a documentary. A documentary I will watch. And it was one of the saddest, most despicable fucking documentaries I ever watched. And a lot of people failed that boy, not just his parents, but all the other fucking people who had access to that kid, and they saw how he looked. They saw the bruises. They saw the burns. They saw the whelps on his body, and they fucking did nothing.
That's crazy.
Nothing.
That shows.
But shout out to Lady Anna Rodriguez with the $5 super chat. I appreciate that, Lady Anna. You get this. I appreciate you dropping your hard-earned coins on this platform. Yeah, they failed that boy, man. They failed him big time, and I know they fail a lot of other kids too, you know, especially being that these people are mandated reporters. They supposed to tell this shit when they see it, man.
Right.
You know, but then they'll fuck around. Then they'll fuck around and tell on some kid that got a little scratch on his hand and shit. Like, come on.
Right.
I mean, I don't expect this. I don't expect the system to be perfect, because no system is ever going to be perfect, right? But when you're talking about children, especially in the matters where they life or death, you gotta be damn near perfect. You have to be. Especially when you're talking about children dying or at risk of dying. You have to be damn near perfect, don't you?
I agree.
So have you ever come across, I don't know if you can talk about this or not, but have you ever come across cases where they come to you and you make the decision whether or not the kids get taken or not? Or
Yes, I've had situations like that. Matter of fact, a lot of people don't understand. Therapists are very powerful in this, particularly at the end of the case. They're not gonna close the case unless I say it need to be closed. I can keep a case open as long as I really want to, particularly if they're not compliant. But most of my cases are closed because I mandated that it be closed.
Okay.
And I've had situations where I wanted to close a case, and the caseworker didn't agree and wanted it open. And then they had cases where I wanted it open and they wanted to close it. And we went back and forth about why. You know, like, matter of fact, I just had a case. I was just getting ready to close this case out, and this guy got arrested for some type of, I don't know what the hell it was. He was doing, he's always in some illegal stuff. And he was sending his children through visits, supervised visits. He ended up going to jail for 20 days and didn't tell nobody.
Damn.
And so I was getting ready to close the case. And then she was like, no, we can't close it because of the fact that he didn't tell us about this. He never reported. And I said, I understand. So, I mean, but I was getting ready to write the paperwork. It's just I didn't see him, but I was going, he had already completed the amount of sessions. You have to complete a minimum of 85% of the services. So he was over that. So I was like, well, hadn't seen him, but let me go ahead and write this up. Had a discussion with her. Then I learned he's in jail. So all of that stuff got overturned. I mean, I've had situations like that when the judge see my paperwork, is like gold. Like, the therapist say this, like, I've even had caseworkers, they'll be like, you know, we waiting on your paperwork. The judge wants your paperwork. The judge is not going to make a decision until the therapist gives his opinion, his recommendation. And a judge will wait till he gets that paperwork, and then he'll read what I stated, and then he'll judge accordingly. That's a lot of power, man. But I look at it like it's a serious thing, because I'm not going to recommend anybody do anything unless I'm 100% sure, because I take it serious. I would never, ever just irresponsibly sign off to do something that I'm not 100% sure, particularly with the interest of children. I remember, man, I made one couple pissed off. They had drug issues, and And this is the thing when you're dealing with addicts. Addicts think everybody's dumb except for them. And yeah, they do. They think everybody's stupid, and they think because I got letters behind my name and degree, they think you ain't street smart. They think I ain't got no street. These people here act like I didn't know what weed smelled like, right? So I went and visited, and let me tell you how stupid they were. I went to their house the last month. They did about 12 hours of counseling. I had to do individual family counseling with them. And they're trying to get their children back. I went to the house the last month. I noticed I started smelling weed. Okay. The first time, I didn't say nothing. I never told them one thing, but I documented. The second time, smell like weed. Third time, smell like, so I documented all of that. I didn't tell them nothing. Okay. So, and then I didn't tell the caseworker anything, but I gave her the notes to read it for herself. And she didn't say nothing. So when it came time, when they completed, and then they were waiting on my recommendations, I recommended that they need to continue doing because they obviously are smoking. The house smells like weed. Man, these people got so irate at me. They we want another therapist. He's lying. It doesn't smell like this. And I'm sitting here smelling like, I mean, they didn't try to they didn't do anything to try to kill us. It smelled literally, and I hate the smell of weed.
They wasn't burning incense in that motherfucker or nothing.
Nothing. I don't even smoke. I've never smoked weed in my life because I really don't like the smell of weed. I hate the smell of weed makes my stomach feel funny. I don't know why. But and they sat there and tried to play dumb as if they didn't know they were smoking weed. And then sure enough, the caseworker got them tested and found out they had a fucking high, extreme ass levels of marijuana in their system. So they had to go back to therapy for another 6 months.
Well, let me ask you this, Brother D. Darrell. Have you ever gotten one of these cases wrong? Have you ever, like maybe miscalculated or overlooked something and got somebody kids took and they really shouldn't have been took?
Good question.
You thinking? That's got me wondering that it might have happened. You thinking?
Yeah, man. I think that was a situation. I think I want to say yes. I had a situation. It was a repeat situation in which it was a kind of crazy situation that happened because the lady and the guy, they had younger children. The guy was like the step. He was, they were living together, but she had another guy that they had the children wasn't, she had 3 children. The baby, the youngest child was for him. And the other 2 children was for the other guy. And they had issues. They struggled with making enough money. They couldn't keep jobs. Both of them couldn't keep jobs. They were stable, right? They were trying to be stable, but they could never keep a job, whatever. Either one was working, the other, or they both wasn't working. And so what ended up happening, we closed the case because they finally kept, that they maintained the home appropriately, and they finally maintained for a few months employment. So they got on their feet, both were working, taking care of the children. And so what ended up happening, I think something happened with the father. Okay. And I think from my point of view, I think she stopped him from seeing the children, but we wasn't necessarily clear. We didn't have evidence to prove that she wasn't. So what ended up happening, the child actually, the guy actually came back and tried to take the children and ended up stabbing her like 13 times. She ended up surviving it, but the children were at risk. Yeah, the children were at risk of being harmed, but they didn't get harmed. But the fact of the matter that she tried to kill the guy had mental health issues, and he tried to kill her, and it actually put the children at risk too. And that actually happened like a year later. I saw them, and then like one summer, and then they called me back again like 10 months, 12 months later, saying they had another case again because she got stabbed, and said that she was continuing to let the guys see the kids, and he had issues and stuff like that. And so I do, even though I wasn't responsible, she basically used her own misjudgment on that and him. But I do feel like we could have maybe prevented him from ever seeing the children, or made the guy do. I never met him, so I couldn't really assess. I never had a chance. Maybe I could have done more to protect the children or the lady by not allowing him to have the free range to come back, because he could have. The guy went and he had got hospitalized because he could have killed everybody in the house. We don't know, but that was one situation. I think we may have put the children's life at risk if we should have done something to prevent him from coming back, or made him do some type of services, or get into some type of treatment for his mental illness. I'm trying to think of anything else. Other than that, that's the only thing I can think of, because most situations, man, if they didn't have it together, they wasn't getting the case wasn't getting closed. Period. But that's one I can think loosely, that I think may have
slipped through the cracks. Did that one slip through the cracks?
I could think. I never had anybody die. Okay. Thank the Lord.
That's good.
I never had anybody die. I'm trying to think.
Good. No one's died.
Yeah.
Well, shout out to brother MGTOW Flight for the $5 super chat. He says SYSBM. You get this.
Oh,
I appreciate you dropping your hard-earned coins on this platform. Don't be talking that SYSBM shit with brother D Darrell up here, boy. You're gonna start something, boy. You're gonna start something up this motherfucker, boy. But
no, not tonight, man. But
good.
But I'm trying to think of anything else. I think that's pretty much it, man. I think that's the only one I could think of offhand. But I'm glad I never had anybody die. Or anything where there was damage, anything that was done. I did have a situation in which man, this was I had a situation where the children were in custody of the mother, and it was the mother and the dad that were fighting over it. And of course they're gonna give. He called C.P.S. And I think she ended up. We didn't know what to believe with both. I mean, I was seeing him and I was seeing her. They had signs of domestic violence between the both of them, and he was saying that she was doing this and she was doing that, and we was trying to give her help. We was giving him help. We thought it was more about an issue of them not knowing how to function. And then we found out that she was using drugs and she was putting the children in dangerous situations. And so she ended up leaving the children unsupervised. But we ended up catching that and getting the kids, and we ended up giving the kids to the dad. But I think that we could have prevented that earlier, but they gave her so much of the benefit of the doubt at the beginning. And I think if they would have listened more to what he was saying, he should have got those children from the start. But because of the domestic violence situation, they perceived him as being the aggressor, in which he wasn't the aggressor. So you really don't know, because it's like hearsay. One saying this about the other one, and you're gonna assume the man was the aggressor. And so that was the reason but she turned out to be just as bad as he said she was. And so he was able to get the children. And so that one was poorly operated. I think those children should have been given to, and she put on a good front for me too, that I didn't, so that's one I think probably one I could have function a little better. And I should have maybe looked at things more equally and not going by the report, because before I get it, I you read the report says this, the police report say this, the CPS worker saying this. So when you read all these reports, you kind of take in what the reports say, instead of maybe I should have just listened, just kind of weighed things out based on the self-report by both parties. So she ended up getting the children taken away, and the children end up going to the dad. That was one that I think could have been done better. I think, where the children actually were put in a bad situation where they should have been taken out of the home immediately.
Well, let me ask you overall, man. Do you think that CPS do they do more good or do they do more harm?
Man, I'm gonna say they do more good, but they should be doing more good than what they're doing. They're not doing enough good. They should be doing more good, and they're making too many mistakes. There's too much a percentage, there's too high of a percentage of them messing up things and not making it better for the family. I think they're hyper vigilant in taking children from homes. I think that you're not benefiting unless you have what I think are just overwhelming evidence against the parents. Those children should not be initially just taken from home. And I think that sometimes they just too freely make assumptions and do things without looking at the totality of the situation and evaluating things before I think that to take children away from their home, you need to think about that and really make sure you're doing the right thing. And I think sometimes they making quick judgments without thinking about things in its entirety. And it ruins the psyche of children. That it can. I've seen CPS do stuff like this. They separate our 4 children. These children start acting out. They start just, once they were making good grades, now they're not making good grades anymore. They really take a turn for the worse. I've seen that happen. So I just think that there could be a reduction in the mistakes, and they could be doing more good than what they're doing.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Because I talk about the abuse, the neglect, the molestation of children. I talk about it pretty regularly, and I get on these old mamas for it. And I know a lot of those cases, if there was somebody to have stepped in, maybe these children would not be dead. Maybe these children would not be hurt. Maybe these women would be in the psychiatric ward where they belong, and the kids would be with the father or the grandparents, or maybe another family that's willing to take care of them. So that's kind of my thing with CPS, because it seems like many times they find themselves in the lives of people that they don't really belong in. And then you got these other cases where they should have been there. They should have noticed. The school should have called them. The doctor should have called them. The aunt, the uncle, the cousin, the grandmama should have called them, so they can get in there and see what's going on with this kid before this kid ends up dead. Because there's a lot of women walking around with psychological problems. They got these psychological problems, and no one says anything. Because if a woman has psychological problems, guess what? She's probably not the best person to be left alone with the children, even if the children are hers, right? So, even when even if it's something as that, man, if you notice, when this woman come up to the school, she's talking to herself and pretending she's Wonder Woman or some shit. Someone needs to say something. you know? And I'm not just talking about the teachers or the counselors or the people at daycare. I'm talking about the fucking people that are around you. Your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, because we got this thing, man, in black society where we always want to keep the fucking secrets, right? I talk about this shit all the time. We need to keep the secrets.
Especially sexual abuse.
Yeah, oh yeah. Man, don't get me started on that shit. I mean, if you see your sister is fucking Looney Tunes, all right? She's Looney Tunes, and she's got this 2-year-old and 1-year-old, man. Somebody need to say something. Someone needs to say something about this. If you see these kids and they look whipped and beat and stabbed and they got cigarette burns on them, someone needs to say something. Someone needs to say something. It's crazy the way black people can get all up in other people's business that they don't know, but for some reason, the people that they do know and the people that they're related to, they want to stay out of their business. They don't want to talk about what goes on in this house, no matter how fucked up the house is, because like I always say, man, some of this shit needs to be told so the bullshit can stop. Some of it needs to be brought to light so some of this nonsense can stop. I'm sorry. Some of these secrets need to be revealed, because if you reveal some of these secrets, you may just keep a kid from getting molested. You may keep a kid from being beat, whooped, neglected, killed even. And I think we don't think about that at all, because we, like I said, it's all about keeping quiet about what's going on in this house. All right. What's going on in this house? Nobody's supposed to say nothing until it gets to the end and this baby finds themselves molested, hurt, dead. And even then, people don't want to talk about what led up to it, because if they talk about what led up to it, what it'll do is point the fingers at all the motherfuckers who was around that kid but never said anything.
Right.
So, I mean, that's where we are, man. Stop keeping the secrets. I tell motherfuckers off top, if I see any of my nieces or nephews or anybody looking like they got cigarette burns on them or they whipped, I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something to their mother. I'm going to say something to their father. I'm going to say, hey, man, why do this boy got cigarette burns on his damn arm? Why do this boy got belt buckle marks on his legs? Why does he have these reps on him? I'm going to say something. I'm not just going to sit back and act like I don't see it. Fuck that.
I agree, man. We have to protect children.
I mean, come on, man. And I know it's a lot of people watching this shit right now, whether you watching it live or watching it on the replay. Y'all know exactly what I'm talking about when we talk about keeping the goddamn secrets all the goddamn time. Nobody wants to say anything about anything. Let's just keep it quiet. The beatings, the abuse, the neglect. Let's just not say anything. Let's just hope it goes away. If we deny it, it'll just go the hell away. No, it won't go away. That's why a lot of black people are fucked up today. You know why? Because they lived in a house where nobody wanted to say anything. And the abuse continued. And luckily, they happened to survive it. And now they probably got the same freaking mental issues that the person who was abusing them had. So now you got another person walking around here with 4 and 5 screws loose and damn near battywackles trying to pretend like they normal. And now they probably doing the same shit to their children. So, I mean, I just wish that we would put our priorities in place, man. What this person thinks of you is not as important as that child's life or that child's well-being. Okay? Because me, I don't give a fuck what they think of me. All right? If you bring your kid around me and your kid look abused, I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something. I might fuck around and call CPS on your ass if the child looks too wet to beat or bad or whatever. Yeah, I might even do that. I'm telling you. I refuse to keep the fucking secrets, especially when it comes to kids. I'm not keeping your secrets for you. So don't fucking come around me, okay? If your kid has got shit going on with him, he get beat, whooped. If I can see signs of the kid being touched or molested, don't bring your kid around me because I am not going to keep your secret with you or for you. Let me repeat. I am not going to keep the fucking secrets. All right? But yeah, man, I didn't want to keep you too long, brother D. Darrell, man. I appreciate you coming on, brother.
No
Short
problem.
notice and shit. Any final thoughts, man, before we get up out of here?
Yeah, I like to say that again, if anybody has any questions or anything more they want to know, I may start. I try to I don't usually do CPS topics on my channel. I do some every now and then. I may talk about sexual abuse or physical abuse, and I may use matter of fact, be honest with you, man, I had a family that I helped. I saw people talking about Washington D.C. in the chat, but a year ago, man, I had helped a family that had some issues like this in Baltimore, man. They found me going live, and the lady had runaway children. Children were running away. One was in foster care, CPS, all the things, and I had helped her get her daughter back. I usually don't. I really usually don't like doing those types of things online because it kind of reminds me too much of work. So I try to do something as direct opposite of that because I don't want to feel like I'm going online and I'm working again. But if anybody do have any questions, anything about CPS, people that want to remain anonymous, maybe to help a family member or themselves or something, and they need some guidance in that, you're more than happy to email me. Go to my channel, D. Darrell the Rebirth or D. Darrell Life Solutions, and you can check my page, and I have my email listed, and you can contact me, and I can definitely provide some level of guidance for you. Every now and then, I do get people that may ask me something in regards to this or if it's mental health related, but I do think that parents need to know the rights that they have and utilize those rights and tools to prevent this agency from sometimes they just kind of make mistakes, and they just they don't have the over authority over parents. They really don't. I mean, they have limitations just like anybody else, and a lot of times they get away with this stuff because parents don't know their rights and they don't know the process. So other than that, man, I definitely enjoyed talking about this topic and so on. I'm actually getting ready to I gotta actually renew my contract for another 3 years. I'm actually waiting on them to get back with me so I can do the renewal. But at one time, this used to be a major part of my business. It's not anymore. Starting off, it was where I would say 50% of my business came from CPS. Now it's probably like 5%. But I still get a good bit amount, but it's not. I just have other things that kind of dilute the amount of clientele. But there are a lot of families that have been separated because of CPS, unfortunately. Somebody mentioned that the city of Washington got, over the last 20 years, lost over $1 billion. They got sued for that amount. And I just think that if anything happens with anybody, please make sure you have some type of representation. If you're not being truly treated correctly, people, stereotyping you, thinking because you or whatever that you're this or that. If you feel that way, get representation to protect yourself and protect your children. And so appreciate X for having me on. Appreciate the discussion. I hope that I was able to provide some information as far as what the system looks like, what's done, and give you a perspective on that. So appreciate you for having me on, brother.
Absolutely, man. Anytime, Brother D. Darrell, man. Hit me up, man. We need to do more of this kind of shit.
Okay, anytime, man.
My brother. Peace.
Peace.
Yeah, folks, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Good shit tonight. I'm gonna say this, man, before we get up out of here. And I was reading Brother MGTOW Flight's comments, man, and this one stuck out. He said his adoptive parents founded the Foster Care Association in the county and were powerful, so no one said anything, not even police, when he called them on his adoptive abusive mother. And I think that has a lot to do with it, right? I mean, if the people who are abusing you have power or have some type of gravitas, or they're charismatic enough, I mean, it's not even going to matter. They can talk their way right on up out of anything. But on the other side of that, you got people who they get away with some of the most heinous of things, man, where these children are concerned. And then you have these people who CPS jumps all over these people, and these people have done nothing. They've done nothing, but CPS is all over them because the child has a scratch or a cut finger or some bullshit like that. I mean, I've seen that shit too, where CPS just fucks with a person, man, for no good reason, and the people get angry, as well they should, because you got these fucking people walking up to your door and telling you something stupid. And to go even further, the bogus reports, all right? The bogus reports, when you got somebody knocking on your damn door because someone done reported you out of spite when nothing's going on with your children. So of course, when you open the door and they say, hello, CPS or child services or whatever the hell they say, you're going to be looking at them cockeyed like, what the fuck are you doing here? And the only thing they're going to say is, oh, well, we got a report. Because, see, like Brother D. Darrell said, the reporting is anonymous. So anybody can call and send these folks to your house. And all they have to do is tell a compelling story. All they have to do is say they fear that the kids will be killed, or you're molesting them, or you're shooting them, or something stupid like that. They're coming to the door and probably showing up with the police. Now you have to prove that you're not doing something that was falsely reported. How can you disprove a false allegation? How easy is that to do? How easy is it to disprove a false allegation? I mean, it's just crazy, man. And Brother D. Darrell was here, and he says that they do more harm. I mean, they do more good than harm. The jury's still out on that for me. From what I've seen, okay? From what I've seen over the course of my life, I've seen CPS come in and harass folks over infinitesimal minor shit. And then you see people who are blatantly abusing their children, obviously abusing their children, and CPS never shows up. No one ever reports them. I mean, at some point, man, agencies like this have to get it right more than they get it wrong. Like I said before, I don't expect them to be perfect, because no agency is, but when you're talking about children's lives, you got to be damn near perfect. You got to be damn near perfect, man. All right? You have to be. when kids' lives are on the line. I mean, you have to be. And I'm not mad at anybody who calls CPS on a parent who they think may be neglecting the kids. I'm not mad at you, man. That's what you're supposed to do. If you think those kids are getting beat or molested or abused, or I don't have a problem with you calling CPS. If there's a real threat there, yes, absolutely, you should. You may be saving them children's lives. Now, for you people who just pick up the phone and call CPS for no reason now, that I definitely don't go along with. You're just picking up the phone and calling them for no goddamn reason just because you want to get at the person. I mean, to me, that's just like totally ridiculous. But we got to stop keeping the secrets, man. Got to stop keeping the secrets. We have to stop it. We have to stop it. Because if we don't, man, shit, you never know. A lot of them little kids, man, you know, it may be your niece, your nephew, your grandkid, your little cousin. They may end up like this little fella. This little fella here, man. This is Gabriel Hernandez. I'm telling you, y'all need to go to Netflix and check it out. It's called The Trial of Gabriel Hernandez. And you will see how not only his old mama and the motherfuckers she drug into the house, you know, they failed him because they eventually killed him. But all those other people around this kid, man. All the other people around this kid failed him too. Y'all will see the pictures of him with bruises and cigarette burns and shit on him. Y'all will see the fucking bruises the little boy had in the back of his head and shit, and nobody said shit. Y'all need to go check it out. Like I said, it's called The Trials of Gabriel Hernandez on Netflix. I know y'all got Netflix, god damn it. Y'all need to watch this. And it'll give y'all an insight, man, of, you know, how bad shit can be. You know? And maybe, just maybe, you know, you don't have to worry about this woman here showing up at your goddamn door or showing up at someone else's door. Because maybe we need to start doing some of this shit in-house. Because people are always talking about, oh, y'all always talking this shit in front of white people, as if we can control who the fuck watch YouTube. We got this thing where we want to try to take care of everything in-house. How about we take care of some of this shit in-house? If your nieces and nephews and shit are getting whooped, say something about it. Try to stop the shit. And maybe, just maybe, you won't see one of these damn white girls standing at your fucking door talking about they from CPS. It's like we're real secretive about the shit we should be talking about. But the shit we should be keeping secret, we talk about that shit like no tomorrow. Then we up and we're looking crazy. And then white folks show up. And you wiping tears from your eyes. Trying to explain to this little 3, 4, 5-year-old why they have to go away with these fucking people. As if they understand that. And I know it must hurt, man, like a motherfucker to watch people take your kids and drive them away from there. That's gotta hurt. Not just the kid, but also the parent. So my suggestion would be, number one, be a fucking decent parent. Don't give these motherfuckers an excuse to be taking your baby. And number two, if these motherfuckers happen to show up and you know that you've done nothing wrong, stick to your motherfucking guns. Because I know they just can't come in and take your kid for no fucking reason. So don't give them a reason. And number three, when these fucking kids are crying out about something, I would err on the side of believing the kid. I would err on the side of believing the kid. Because, see, if a kid is lying, it's easily proved it's a lie. It's easily proven. Especially when you're talking about abuse, neglect, molestation, shit like that. If the kid is lying about this, that will be easily proven. Be easily proven. So err on the side of the kid. I just think that's the best way to go. But that's all, Negroes. But anyway, I appreciate everybody coming out tonight, man. As always, y'all already know what it is. You know, good shit tonight, man, with Brother D. Durrell. You know, Brother D. Durrell came through and laid some wisdom on us, you know. And don't get me wrong, man. I disagree with Brother D. Durrell on a lot of shit. All right. I disagree with him on a lot of shit. And but tonight, I was pretty much in agreement with him tonight, for the most part. You know? I mean, when it comes to these kids, man, you know, we gotta kind of think ahead, man. We gotta act as opposed to react, man. It has to be done. Because like I always say, man, you always got people talking about the future of black folks, man. But if you want to talk about the future of black folks, man, you're talking about the kids. That's who you're talking about. There's no getting away from that. All right? All right. So, with that, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, man. As always, man, you could have spent your Saturday night anywhere, man, but you decided to spend it here with us, and it is appreciated. As always, man, I appreciate all the super chats, but most importantly, man, I appreciate your participation over anything else. That means more to me than any dollars ever will. I don't take you lightly, man. I never have and I never will. You got my word on that. I appreciate all the good folks who hang out there and good folks who hang out in here. All right. All right. I'll probably see y'all Wednesday night. I'm working on a few things. So Wednesday and Thursday, man, we right back at it, man. So you Negroes, go ahead and have a good weekend. All right. All right. And shout out to Brother D. Durrell, man, for coming through tonight, man. It's appreciated, brother. So, with that, I will leave you good folk with 3 words. You know, like I always do. Open your mind.
Dark exodus. Dark exodus. the protester, the protester, the protester, the protester. Dark X, dark X, dark X, dark X.
Open your mind.
You know.
Yeah, X.
Dark exit, dark exit, dark exit.
You understand? Understand?
Yeah, X.
You understand? You understand? Open your mind.
Dark X, dark X,
Yeah,
dark
X.
X.
You know.
You understand? You understand?
Yeah, X.
Open your mind.
Dark, 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 dark exodus, dark exodus, dark exodus, dark exodus.
only from T.P.O.T. Media. Open your mind, your mind.